Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the Curt 4-pole trailer wiring harness that's a custom fit to a 2020 Toyota Tacoma. If you have a Hitch on your Tacoma, it's a nice addition to add 4-pole trailer wiring harness. That way, if you ever have to tow a trailer, you can hook up and have that light sequence go from the taillights of your vehicle to the lights on the back of the trailer. And that way you have your running lights, your turn signals and brake lights behind you, keeping you safe and legal. And this one is custom fit, meaning that it plugs in directly to the factory style plugs. So it's pretty easy. There's very little bit of cut and splice that you need to do, and the main part of that is just running a power wire up to the battery of the vehicle, and it's pretty simple to do. So within about 30 or 40 minutes you can have 4-pole trailer wiring installed on your Tacoma. Now this is all module protected, and there's also an inline fuse, so if you have faulty wiring on your trailer, backfeed's never going to go back and mess anything up on your truck. So as far as installation goes, it's going to be pretty easy, and follow along. I'll walk you through step by step. Make sure you get yours installed. Beginner installation, we're going to need to remove our taillights. So lower down your tailgate, and you're going to find that you have some 10mm bolts. There should be 3 of them that we're going to remove, and that's going to allow us to pull our taillight out. Now there are alignment tabs on the taillight, so just be careful. A lot of times what I find is if you just kind of wiggle it back and forth, that'll kind of loosen that up, and then we should be able to get this to pop out, and I'll show you exactly where they're at. So you see we have one here, one there, so we just kind of pry along that if you need to. You could probably use a plastic trim tool to just kind of pry here. Just be careful on your taillights. Now at this point, we do need to separate the plugs on our taillights. That way we can tie into our new wiring harness. And so looking at our plug, it looks like we have this top one here, which is going to be the one that we need to tie into. And you can see it matches up our plug pretty well. So what I'll do is I'm going to leave this kind of hanging here. You can separate it if you want, but we'll take our module, and we're going to want to grab the yellow and white, and this is going to route up through this hole, and you should be able to see it pretty easily. And you're also going to notice that there's a plug that's close by that's going to be this brown and red. That's also going to tie in here on our driver's side taillight, so get that pulled through as well. There's also a ground with that. So once you get this portion up, what I'm going to do is start making my connections. So the first thing we'll do is take our plug, this male end, or female end, put that in our taillight, and then this is just going to snap into the other end. And that's one connection made. And then our red and brown is going to go into this middle one here, so we can separate that and do the same thing. And with those connections made, we do want to make sure we get our ground wire attached to the frame of the vehicle. So this whole section's pretty open here to be able to attach this with a self-tapping screw. There is a stud here, but I think the best bet, we'll just kind of drill this in and get that in place. So with our self-tapper, we're just going to drill this into this section here. And as long as you have it tight enough to where the ring terminal's not spinning around, that's all you need. You don't want to keep going at it because it can actually strip that hole out. So at this point, we have all of these plugged in. We're going to get our taillight put back in place. Now something I found with the other one is this one just kind of holds this plastic in, so it's just the top and bottom one here. But we're going to get this taken off. That way we can route our other wire and have that pocket to feed it through. I'm just going to leave this hanging here, and then we're going to go underneath the truck and start getting the rest of it routed over, and also make a few more connections. Now on our driver's side, we have everything hanging down here, and you'll see the black wire that's been pre-stripped. We're going to want to attach our power wire Now included in the kit is a butt connector to be able to make this connection, but this is something that lives on the outside of the vehicle, so it is going to be exposed to any elements that you may be driving through. So I recommend picking up some heat shrink butt connectors. These are great because once you crimp them down and heat them with a heat gun, it's going to seal it all up and make sure that it's a nice watertight connection. So I'm just going to get this started here, and we'll route this up later to the battery, but this at least have this attached, and that way we can figure out slack as we run the other power or the other cables. So once we crimp this down, let's take that heat gun and shrink it down. So now at this point, we're going to take our green wire as well as our 4-pole end and start routing it over to the other side where we're going to plug this into that taillight. And our 4-pole, you're going to want to have it somewhere normally here. You can grab a bracket here at eTrailer if you want a solid mount. Otherwise, you can use the dust cap to just put it on here. But I'm going to wait to zip tie everything up. I want to make sure that we have it plugged in. We'll pull the slack back and then we'll get this all buttoned up. So go ahead, route this over. And I do recommend you can use some of the factory wire loom to route over. You can use the hitch, whatever works best, but keep your wires up nice and tight. I went ahead and pulled up our green wire through here, and this is going to attach to our top one. So just as we did on the driver's side, we'll get this snapped into place. And then we can get this taillight put back in. So I just took that green wire and pulled the slack out and zip tied it up to some of the factory wire loom that's already there. That way it's nice and secure. I also determined a good length for our 4-pole wiring to be able to attach to our hitch, but also not be hanging down too much. So any excess you can kind of just zip tie up. The main thing though is you want to have enough wiggle room here to be able to get this mounted. So as far as getting this mounted, it's pretty easy. We have a flat surface here and there's double-sided tape that we can put on there. There's also a hole right here that you can run a zip tie through. So you have plenty of options here, but I do think I found a nice spot that is going to keep it protected. So I'll get this placed on there first. And up in this channeling, there's going to be a nice flat surface. So go ahead and just kind of wipe that down, make sure it's good. And then this hole here is going to be a good spot for us to run a zip tie through. So that way it's going to stay in place for the lifespan of our wiring. So with that mounted up, I'm going to go ahead and take our power wire and get this ran up to the battery, which is going to be located on the driver's side. So we're going to be going underneath the vehicle. I'm going to try to find some safe places to run this. Normally, if you follow along with some factory wire loom, it's going to be a safe option. Main thing is staying away from anything that's moving or hot that can damage the wire. So I'll go ahead, I'll get this routed up and show you exactly where I ran it. So our power wire, I just went over our frame and zip tied it up to some of the factory wire loom and kind of pass it up over our spare tire and just kind of followed along here. And we made our way to the rear cross member and I just passed that up over. And I used the channeling in the frame here to be able to pass it through, kind of keep that up, and then made my way over to I wrapped it around here and used our brackets that are in place for our hard lines and just ran it through, and that's going to support it. And making my way down. If you need to, you can put a few zip ties here and there just to kind of make sure that it's going to stay in place. And then looking up, it's pretty open here, but we have our steering column. So I tucked it behind some of the hard lines over here. That way it's not going to make contact with our steering shaft. So I pulled up our excess power wire, and we are going to be attaching the fuse holder, which adds a little bit of length. So the best thing that I've found is, one of these ends is going to go to the battery terminal, and you can kind of determine where you want that fuse to sit. I might just kind of zip tie it up to here, and that's going to at least let us know where we need to cut our power wire, because we do have quite a bit of extra. So I'll go ahead and snip it here. And I'm going to strip this back. And again, I'll be using a heat shrink butt connector for this connection. So really all you need is 2 of them if you do plan on picking those up. And again, just because it lives in the engine bay where it can get water or anything in here, it's not a bad thing to do. We'll then get our fuse holder in place. And then on the other end of the fuse holder, we'll take our ring terminal and get that on there. Now, very important, don't put your fuse in the fuse holder until you have this hooked up to that positive terminal. So I'm gonna grab my heat gun and I'll shrink this down, and then we'll take off this nut on our battery post. To loosen up the nut on our terminal, it's gonna be a 12mm socket. And when you route the wires, you can run it as clean as you want. You know, you just kind of tuck it as necessary to keep it nice and tidy here. You can also go back and zip tie this up once you have all your wires in place. So once I get this routed over clean, I'll get this attached. And also you might be able to go through this rubber portion. That way that caps back down on it, just like it would be OEM. Now we can take our included fuse and place that in our fuse holder. And that's going to do it for our installation. But before we hit the road, we do want to test to make sure that our wiring is working properly. So I'll be using a 4-pole tester. You can hook it up to your trailer. When testing your light sequence, go ahead and start with your running lights. Next, you can do a left turn signal, right turn signal, and then finally your brakes. Now with everything working properly, you've officially installed your 4-pole wiring. Now for a finishing touch, if you want to kind of make this look a little bit cleaner, you can always pick up a little bit of wire loom and slide this on and just use electrical tape to tape it up, and that way it's a little sleeker looking while it lives on the back of your vehicle. And that was a look and installation of the Curt 4-pole trailer wiring harness on a 2020 Toyota Tacoma.